Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Bull. So in this week's episode, the case that the team ends up taking on is a well-known defense lawyer named Jules, played by Isaiah Washington, who's obviously been in many things, but the most recent thing you will know him from is The 100, where he plays Jaha. Basically, he's accused of killing his fiancee Lauren. What's very interesting about this case, obviously from the very get-go, is the fact is that obviously a lot of people don't like Jules because of the way he goes about things, like the fact that he defends very upstanding citizens, like people like mobsters and stuff like that, helping them. And most people, they look at him as very skeezy, and the fact is that he's a showman. He puts on a show, like everything's theatrics. He tries to kind of pull up the drama that kind of helps, him sway a jury or whatever, a case more in his favor. It's just people just look at him as very deplorable. Some people are like, well, other people are like, yeah, if you need someone on your side, it's like, yeah, have him. I won't go as far as saying he's like someone like Saul from Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul. Not that bad, but obviously, to a certain degree, it's like he obviously wants truth and justice, but obviously he kind of skates the lines of like, all right, that's like the more, obviously he just plays it up, obviously, because he kind of has this persona of just being like, basically at the end of the day, he's very narcissistic. That's kind of what it's kind of about. What's actually kind of interesting is it's actually the second narcissistic character we've had to deal with across this series. The first being an ex of Marissa's. He was very tough to deal with, and it seems like a similar situation with Jules. But the thing is, I thought was kind of interesting compared to other cases, is the fact is that he forces his way into being represented by Bull, because basically he's on TV and he's like, yeah, I'm being represented by Jason Bull, and they're like, wait, what? Everyone's on TV's like, okay, Bull, why didn't you tell us you were representing him? Yeah, that's because we aren't. He didn't hire us. He didn't talk to me. It's like, so he's putting Bull on the spot. He's putting it out there now. Everyone's thinking like Bull's representing him, and if Bull pulls back, he'll look suspicious. I think more so than anything, it's more of like a double-edged sword. It's like, yeah, it forces Bull to kind of have to work with him, because if he pulled back, I guess it looked like, oh, he's abandoning his client. Like, oh, he 100% doesn't believe, that Jules is innocent, which obviously Bull does. What makes the case even more complicated is the fact is that you have Jules kind of going about it his own way. Once again, kind of pulling on a narcissistic level, which I appreciate. Like, there's like a system on like a narcissistic scale, and they're like, oh, what number am I at? It's like, yeah, you're like 38 out of 40. It's like, wow. But he's so got his own mindset, especially because Bull is like, yeah, I want you to represent yourself. Even Benny's like, whoa, Bull, really? We're going to let him do that? Like, everyone's not really keen on the idea. The fact of the matter is Benny couldn't represent him, because Benny's like, yeah, because Benny was actually beaten by him in the past. Like, he's crossed paths with Jules in the past, and even Chunk kind of brought up the fact is like he's done some good. Obviously, he's a showman, and obviously you're kind of like, I don't like the way he's tactics, and obviously don't like a lot of the stuff he's done. But he has somewhat done some good. Obviously, his ego's gotten him win and stuff like that. So he has his own way of wanting to do things. Because Bull feels like if no one can represent him better than he can represent himself. Because the fact of the matter is, if they got someone else to help represent him, he would just be critiquing. It's like, don't do that. No, do this. And even when it came to the jury selection and stuff, he kind of went about it his own way, not listening to Bull. And that ended up with them having jurors on the jury that they are not favorable to their situation. Because they want people who aren't narcissistic, who are on a lower scale of narcissism, because it's like, I actually don't remember the reasoning why they wanted people less narcissistic. Obviously, I guess they needed someone opposite of him, because in him, he wanted someone that's a little more, as narcissistic as him, to be able to, like, basically he wanted to wind people up. It's like, yeah, his tactics is to kind of wind people up, get the drama started. And he's like, oh, well, that's what you need to do. You need to have people who hang on to my every word and kind of get whisked up in it, and they'll help me. But it's like, well, it's like, no, you need the opposite of that. You need people who aren't so caught up in who you are and everything, and get caught up in your words, to be the ones that help you get around this. So, because like I said, the whole thing is they had this whole plan laid out for him, but he didn't go with it. But it seems like it didn't work. It was kind of a good thing that happened, because what we end up finding out is that, like, basically later on, he's got this group together, and that's actually working better in his favor. Because I guess it's like, not necessarily like him tailoring to his audience, because that's the last thing you want to do in a situation, but I think it's like he's very good at what he does of getting people on his side. So he's able to convince people like, oh, we're doing this for Lauren's sake, that justice be held, that, because he's kind of always preaching like the corrupt system that exists, which is like, obviously the system's not perfect, but the fact of the matter is it as corrupt as he makes it out to be? I won't say here nor there, but it seems like he uses that to kind of fan the fires a bit. But even Bull is shocked. He's like, okay, this isn't, wow. Okay, in a normal case, obviously they have their own preparations on how to handle a situation like this, which in this particular case, it doesn't account for a type of person that Jules is, and the fact of the matter is like the variables that come along with him. So it's like even Bull had to be like, okay, I guess I kind of roll with it. He was like, yep, Jules is an innocent man. He's not the one that killed Lauren, kind of showing like his stance of like, oh, I'm 100% on your side. I guess in situations like that, obviously you don't, as support, and you don't want to kind of toot your own horn and be like, oh yeah, this person's 100% innocent, because obviously when stuff comes out later on, it's going to kind of bite you in the ass. It's kind of my thought process behind it. So, but still. And I also thought was kind of interesting, the fact is that Bull was kind of like, hey, you get to do what no one has ever been able to do before. Legally, you're able to cross-examine your ex-wives, which he was married 3 times before. Lauren would have been his 4th wife. Because it turns out that, like his wives talk about the fact is that like, oh yeah, he had a temper, he would yell and throw stuff. The fact is he was kind of, they've even used the word monster, just because, it's like, oh, but it was kind of interesting seeing him kind of get to cross-examine him, being like, okay, the fact of the matter is, were you mad? Because the fact is I put a lot of time towards my job. The fact of the matter is, obviously I wasn't there. I wasn't keening to your listening to you. But the fact is you kind of almost twisting it and turning it on him. Like you knew who I was and where I'm at, like at a time of me, like us being together. That being a family man was never going to be part of my future with the way I work and what I was trying to build and everything, which obviously what I'm saying, they're kind of like, yeah, we get it. It's like, have I ever laid hands on you and stuff like that? Yeah, he scared them at moments, but he never laid his hands on them. And then it turns out there was even a moment where he was like, actually, like, when it was like, tell me though, like, yeah, obviously there were the up and downs, but when it was good, how was our relationship? And some were like, it was good, it was great. And it's like, it was so interesting kind of getting that perspective, like, because, it's like when he was a husband, when he was there for them, because obviously like the first wife, he didn't bring it up, she brought up the fact that they were married 5 years, second wife was 4 years, the third wife for 3 years. And it's like, obviously he has younger wives and everything, like each wife is younger, upon them getting married and everything. So it kind of put things in perspective for him, because even he had to kind of sit back afterwards. It was a little bit of, it was lethargic in a sense, that kind of getting that air cleared, because it's like he's like, my exes have never been that open with me before. It kind of felt good. I mean, so obviously he'd never want to go through it again, because it makes you face who you are too, because it makes him realize like, oh, was I that bad of a husband? Like, oh, these are all my faults. I mean, it's something to keep in mind going forward, because the only way you can learn from your mistake is learning that you've made mistakes. Like if you look at if you're not willing to realize that something's wrong with your particular relationship, then, because to him, he always treated his relationship as like, well, the fact is I wasn't always tending to their needs, which obviously played a big part in it. I was so caught up in work. I missed some birthdays, some anniversaries, which plays a big part too, because that means a lot, because it's like, that means you're not even invested really in a relationship. That the fact of the matter is that you so easily forget my birthday or my, like that I'm not a big part of your world. It's kind of what that mentality that particular situation ends up creating. At least that's how I see it. So. Because the reason why this all started, because most people are kind of pointing it towards him, is obviously the ADA, the prosecutor in this episode. Her name is Shelley. It seems like from the very beginning, she has like a big vendetta against him. Even more so, like, it's like, okay, finding out she thought Benny was representing him and everything. She's like, oh, trying to offer a deal. It's like, oh no, he's going to be representing himself. Screw it. No, let's go to trial. Just because she's like, I'm not going to let him try to play this up and try to be a showman and everything. Because the reason why she paints the picture of him being like a jealous lover, because obviously Lauren being younger and everything, that contributes to the fact is, oh, she must be having an affair. She was sneaking around and stuff, hiding conversations. Well, it turns out one of the people associated with the cheerleading team was a dude named Kelvin, and the fact is that he was having a relationship with a dude named Grant, and she was covering that up for them, because they didn't want to put it out there that their relationship was real. So like, I guess she kind of acted as a buffer to kind of keep anyone from finding out. She kind of probably helped them out, like places they can meet up without there being much of an issue. I guess it's kind of the mentality I'm kind of picturing there. So. But the real twist in it all is when you find out about Lauren herself, because it's like they ran her fingerprints because they never bothered running her fingerprints originally because, Jules was there to kind of identify the body. Well, Bull and his team run her fingerprints. Turns out she's actually a, grifter, that basically she has all these different personalities, she has all these IDs and stuff, and now it's like, oh, that's what she meant. Because at the beginning, like, what sparked this is the fact that she left them a voicemail saying, like, I know you're mad and everything, but just let me, just kind of talk to me, essentially. So obviously everyone thought he killed her in that, it's like, he found out she was cheating and stuff like that. And then obviously you can also twist it to be like, oh, you found out the truth that she was this person, but it's like, no, he didn't, because he never looked into her. It's like, even being all wealthy and everything, it's like, you never bothered to look into her. You would think you would. Like, to him, he's saying, like, obviously the more optimistic side of it is like, oh, he was in love and he didn't think he needed to. But then there's the more, well, kind of along the same lines, is because he didn't want to look. He didn't want to find anything he wanted things to work out, because obviously it hasn't worked out in the past, and he just wanted to make sure things worked out. So he's in love. This woman loves him. At the very least, he wants it to be a situation where it's like, he doesn't want there to be any reason to kind of call this relationship off. So he didn't say anything. I mean, he didn't look into her, but he didn't know about this whole situation. So it's interesting. The fact is, you have someone that you love, you care for so much, and then to find out, like, oh, you're not the person I thought you were. It's like, obviously she got with him for his money and everything, but the fact of the matter is, she was willing to sign a prenup. So, because he was like, yeah, I didn't want her to sign a prenup, but she was the one that, was saying, like, to sign one, which I guess, to be fair, like, because it showed you that she did ultimately love him. It never, like, not unless I missed it, but he never really, obviously we find out who the killer is later on in the episode, because Lauren's real name is Regina, and there was a guy testifying, and his name was Derek. He was kind of working on the house, like, getting it to the way that Lauren wanted to, like, specify, but he showed up. He's like, oh, there's like, arguments and stuff. Like, I stepped in the way. I was trying to be a hero. I mean, if I was a real hero, I would have, stopped you from killing her. And obviously that turned the jury against him and everything. And that was the point where Bull was like, one of those points where Bull was like, okay, you go ahead and do this. I'm going to sit back and watch the train wreck happen. And he stepped back and watched it happen. But nevertheless, you end up finding out, because it's kind of a little thing that she does and he does, that basically it's kind of a thing that basically you have the need, like, you have this tick where you have to tug at your eyebrow. And it seemed like his real name is Jared, and obviously Lauren, whose real name is Regina, both did it. So it's like, oh, obviously we ended up finding out that they're siblings. So it seems like that's the factor in all of this. She probably thought that he had finally figured out about her secret, and she was like, okay, I know you're mad, let me explain. She probably thought that's what happened, like the reason why he wasn't there, that he found out the truth about her. And it never really said, like I said, not unless I missed it, but I can only assume the reason why her brother killed her is because it's like, you turned your back on me. The fact is, we were supposed to be in this together. You weren't supposed to get close to the mark, but the fact is you did. And the fact is that you're willing to give up everything, like what we're trying to build, we're trying to steal from him and everything, which is still messed up. The fact is that you're willing to kill your sister for that. I guess more so than anything, it might be the fact is that he wanted to kill her because she was going to tell him the truth. Maybe he didn't know the truth at that time. Because maybe it's not that she thought he knew the truth. Maybe she thought he, was still on the thought of the affair situation. So she's like, I know you're mad about what you think it is, but, like, let me explain, let me talk to you and tell you what's really going on. So he probably found out about that and was like, because she probably told him ahead of time, it's like, I'm done with this whole thing. I'm going to marry Jules. I'm going to be happy and everything. It's like, it kind of shows you how much of a crappy brother you are, because you're willing to kill your own sister for the sake of, like, for what do you get out of this? I guess, like, when it was all said and done, he could come forward after, like, Jules is in prison, be like, oh yeah, and the woman he killed was my sister. I don't know how he would plan on doing that, especially because it would reveal the fact that your sister has a criminal background. I don't know. Like, I don't know what point he was trying to make, obviously. Like, what he really gotten out of this. So, it's kind of sad, dude, actually. Because, I mean, an interesting thing, too, is that on the flip side of this, it kind of, you saw Wes and Cable, which we see them still going. I also appreciate the fact that we saw Allie too, being an assistant. So I'm guessing that we will be seeing her going forward. But obviously Wes is giving her gifts and everything, which Allie's like, ooh, did he do something wrong? Are you guys in a bad situation? Like, oh, what are you talking about? It's like, I mean, a guy doesn't just give you gifts like this back to back for no reason, which Danny wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, but it started making Cable start thinking. And so she kind of tracks him, ends up finding out later on in an episode, because the thought is like, oh, is he cheating or something like that? What could be hiding? Turns out he's gaming again, which was also the biggest problem between him and Cable in the first place, of why things didn't work out the first time, because he got so caught up in video games and stuff, and she kind of became like, someone he didn't really pay as much attention to, so that's why things didn't work out. And she thought like, oh, he kind of put gaming to the side this time, so like, hey, maybe things can work this time. But now instead of being matched, obviously she's a little upset, but then she's like, hey, the fact of the matter is like next time, like, don't buy me gifts so much. She's like, the fact of the matter is you're gaming again. She's like, all right, you're going to like, she's basically going to kick his ass at I think it's Titanfall 2 again. But which was kind of good. It's like, okay, they're good. Because, I mean, it's like the situation is like, yeah, I guess it's a situation where it's like, yeah, I get that. That's a part of you. Obviously, you shouldn't have to hide that part of you. You enjoy gaming and stuff. As long as I'm there, as long as I become a part of it and you don't get too swept up in it like before, then that's okay. And maybe like her being there will keep him from getting too swept up in it. So if she, it's better, just be out there in the front rather than him be like trying to hide, from her and everything. So, I mean, that was kind of cool that it worked out like that. And also there was an interesting thing at the end of the episode, because obviously like it shows you just how different they are, but Jules is more of the like put himself out there in the front, but then you have someone like Bull who works in the background and like his team is out there in front doing the work. And then he's like, he's like, oh, maybe you should step out of the shadow sometime and you just kind of take court. He's like, but the fact of the matter is that's not who I am. He's like, I'm fine with people not knowing who I am. As long as this job gets done, like I'm fine. I don't need all the glory and attention. So that was kind of a nice humble thing for Bull to do. So overall, a very, very good episode. Very interested to see what happens in the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.